Yazhi. People on Earth are heavily conditioned to see space as empty and only having one planet with life in it. So they very strongly think that society and everything that goes with it, from moral values to history to taste in food to clothes and fashion, gadgets, jewelry, ethics, sports cars, clothes hangers, everything was invented on Earth by humans. They were conditioned to think that way by their governments, by the controllers like the Illuminati, using media, music, movies, social values through schools, among so many other places. This causes the humans to have a very strong resistance to even accepting human form life as existing in countless other planets, in the vastness of space. Even more, they resist the idea that a simple clothes hanger, earrings, or a simple pencil can be found in countless places, civilizations, and cultures all over the galaxy. One of the most difficult concepts people are having a very hard time accepting is the simple fact that there is an enormous amount of other cultures that are exactly human in form all over the galaxy, and perhaps even all over the vast universe. As I was saying, humans think that they are the only ones that exist, and even the most versed ET enthusiasts still hold doubt that ETs even exist. This is because they are by design isolated in a cocoon under a dome surrounding a planet, making believe they are alone to be able to have a very specific hard experience. Hard experience, but very rich in contrast and in learning. So much so that it does mark a person, even when it has transcended into incarnating somewhere else in the universe. The experience on Earth is so intense that it does influence the cultures of just about all the races whose members have been involved with an experience on Earth. But this goes both ways, and as Earth influences other cultures, so do other cultures influence Earth, and in a very strong way. A concept I have explained before, but for me it is of utmost importance, is that people, when they are souls, for lack of a better word, but I strongly dislike it, consciously and or unconsciously import and export ideas of all kinds as they migrate, having experience after experience, incarnating all over the universe. This strongly explains, in my point of view, why Earth is so rich with such a vast diversity of cultures and everything that makes them. Making Earth become some kind of hub or important point of attention, concentrating values and ideas of elsewhere. As I have explained before, but I must point out again, the barrier between what is human of Earth and what is extraterrestrial is not a hard and clear differentiated barrier of sorts. It is vague, shady, misty, unclear. This, I say, I know heavily bothers many that think ETs are only creatures from space, not their neighbor or their son-in-law. Souls incarnate there, some remembering, others a bit, others not so. So they play human for any given time and a repeat of incarnation. Some are born there. Others go in there using technology. Others are full ETs walking the streets, all playing human, but all having to comply and obey a set of rules or agreements. Some of the most important ones most people don't even know about is, for example, the rule that the matrix of Earth must be preserved at all times. So this is where the Federation comes in again, enforcing the preservation of Earth as it should be, and the ones who decide how it would be are the members of the Federation itself, as the ones who are in the game on Earth, living or having lived as human. This is where the values generated during their incarnation on Earth do transcend into the life they may have in another place outside Earth, and in a place of influence of the Federation itself. So the experiences learned on Earth while being human will transcend to be taken heavily into account when deciding what is next for Earth, what new rules would be implemented or enforced, heavily giving former humans control over the Earth realm, using what they have learned there, especially with regards to values and ethics, creating some kind of cycle or vicious circle, reinforcing or perpetuating the same problems and injustices other stellar races as us see as atrocious and immoral. Well, but that's what I don't understand. If the life here in 3D influences their decisions later, then ask any starseed here. They do not want to suffer here, or they don't want to be manipulated. They do want assistance, etc. So, if the decisions up there are influenced by their past 3D experience here, then they should understand humans here and not want to perpetuate suffering, precisely because they went through it. The problem that is hard to face, and I have mentioned before, is that the value and the interpretation of how suffering, how problems and hardships, and how all is viewed changes once you are outside the Earth realm. This means that they do want to suffer, and that suffering and hardship is the whole point of going to Earth, because they are still under the concept that they need to experience to understand, which in my opinion is only partially valid. The purpose of life is the experience of life itself, the good and the bad, the contrast that comes out of duality, being able to understand and appreciate the good more after going through the equivalent bad. So in life, there are no wrong or invalid or failed lifetimes. That is all experience, and that is what they, people as souls, want and are looking for. And in the process, they aid the very expansion of Source itself, because each person is Source, as understanding itself through a limited point of attention defined by the remembrance of past experiences that form an ego self, defining a soul as what it is. Then why do some do try to change it, even from up there, like you do? I think I will too. Because from your perspective it is wrong, and you hold your perspective as valid. Because although everything is under control and all experiences on Earth are wanted by people's souls, the inescapable fact we are always ranting about is that while someone is having an experience on Earth, while inside the game matrix of Earth, they do not want that suffering and hardship experience. It becomes no less than torture. And it is, in my opinion, completely immoral only to observe the wants, needs, and rights of people outside Earth and not while they are inside Earth living a human experience, even if they signed for it knowingly. But that's what I mean, that them having lived through 3D suffering, they should understand how hard it is and not want it again. But you say that when they get out of here, their system of values changes and they want it again? They should, but the fact is that most don't, because the value of that suffering is different once they are outside Earth. And they didn't see their incarnation there as horrible, having lived a life of poverty and violence. All they see is, wow, what a thrill, let's do it again. And not everyone, as they are different people, will have the same reaction once they leave Earth. Many do think like you do, but you are not enough to make a change. And while you are in the Earth game, you feel that you will not change the value of your hardship experience there. But once you are out, you may change how you think. It is no longer suffering, it becomes a useful creator knowledge. And most people want more, once out of the Earth realm. I would think it's the reverse, that anyone who comes in here and sees this life for what it is from the inside, they will never want to perpetuate what's going on here. It's strange to see that the souls, when they come out, they continue wanting this. I agree. They should react in a way that rejects what is going on in Earth. The problem is this is not so. I am not making this up. The sad fact is that it is everywhere, the same constant reaction once they leave Earth. The value of hardship and suffering changes to the opposite once outside an immersion pod, or once they are in the afterlife between incarnations. I don't like this fact any more than what you do. Well then, if they want this, then what are we doing exactly? Federation wants this, souls want this, then what's our purpose here exactly? The Federation alleges precisely that. That is not our problem, and this is none of our beeswax to fix. Don't like it? Move along. Are they right? A question of perspective. Our purpose as a new Gosha, me Yazhi, we could understand that it's not our problem. But if we remain here, it's because we still hurt for the people who are suffering while inside an incarnation, regardless of how they view things once they are out, and regardless of their plans. But there are souls, points of attention, here, who have been here for hundreds of incarnations. Do they also choose to be here for a thrill? For hundreds of incarnations, one after another non-stop? Maybe they forgot of the way out. I feel they are just digging a deeper and deeper hole here. I feel we are here for those too, especially. Most souls, as I understand, stay on Earth having experience after experience, wanting to go through all the possible variations of lifetimes available on Earth. And they have infinity to do so, quoting Dolores Cannon here. And I strongly agree, and I see this can be the case. After thousands and thousands of lifetimes, it is only logical that they get attached to their identity as a human soul, having to incarnate there over and over again. I am sure they do forget, because the matrix is the thoughts and values of the people who live in it. Therefore, make it by collective agreement. And as when you die, you do not lose your ego self-identity, then you take the matrix with you, because you are the matrix. This then makes a soul that is strongly attached to the idea of being human, not being able to see or to understand that there are other options and places to incarnate in. As seen this way, I understand how it becomes a trap. And this knowledge of what we are saying can help them understand that there are other options. Because no one can see and can understand anything outside their own frame of knowledge, because they cannot interpret the information as they have no background to understand it in the first place. This is valid all the time and everywhere. So once a human soul that is very attached to being human is in the afterlife, they will not be able to see or to consider the possibility that for the sake of their soul's expansion, there are countless other places all over the universe where to have an experience incarnated in what they would call the physical world. Yes, precisely. The problem is that those people who have made that trap for themselves are very far in the frequency spectrum to accept this kind of information we provide. Hence, our project becomes futile in itself, as those are the ones I'm here mostly for. We are not here for Starseeds, really. They know they will get out of here easy. But I'm here for those more deeply trapped souls. But I feel they won't even see this information because of the frequency mismatch. It's not in their reality. So this project of ours becomes redundant, useless, not reaching who it is supposed to reach. I am afraid you are right. They cannot interpret nor see our information as not even slightly valid. Even the people who like this sort of subjects are being bombarded by cabal CIA-controlled information, guiding them away from us and back into the matrix. Because there is a clear matrix regarding ET information, as I explained yesterday. And in the end, the ones who are listening to us already know these things, so we are preaching to the choir. We are trying to teach a chef how to make an omelette. We are teaching a race car driver how to drive a minivan. Beating a dead horse, as the Americans would say. Omelette, yes, it's what I'm afraid too. The matrix itself has control and defense mechanisms to prevent ETs like us from coming in to contaminate the Earth realm with dangerous ideas. This is why there is a system to control and to concentrate ET buffs, extraterrestrial experts, into social constructs or clubs where they reinforce one another, accepting their theories only within the parameters of their accepted community by set of social agreements they must and do follow. Because that is human mentality. To follow the flock, follow the pack, security in numbers, where if you are ostracized from the social group, you will not survive. And this survival is so embedded in their psyche that it stops them from being able to reach higher understanding, because they are incapable of critical thinking, much less of thinking on their own, taking the responsibility to form a complete personal reality in their heads. And this I just said, at least for me, does prove that the CIA is behind all those UFO experts, for lack of a better name for them, and clearly shows you and everyone with eyes to see that I am not following any agreements about this subject. Therefore, I am alone with this and not under any type of external control, much less CIA type. Another day. Could the Federation be called Space Cabal? You know, like we have a cabal here, that shadowy institution that operates it all, then Federation would be like the extension of them. Shadowy government no one knows anything about, pulling strings. Well, I could see the Federation's rules, laws, and regulations as space cabal, but they are not referring to the same cabal. Only more control organizations that would act as the cabal. Yes, the Federation as a powerful institution can or could be seen as cabal. But using that name space cabal is heavily misleading, because it makes you think that the cabal is in space, that the cabal has infiltrated the Federation, and I don't see that. Not a direct infiltration, only as a consequence of the experiences that are transported, imported, or grafted to 5D life. Then that would be the infiltration. But not as people understand infiltration to be like a spy or a military action placing someone like a puppet there in a place of power but under Earth's cabal's control. That wouldn't be so. The Federation does control everything that is going on Earth. And from the standpoint of someone outside Earth, what is going on there is not seen as serious. Yes, they understand there is suffering, but they see it as natural consequences of actions and of life plans. And the concepts of reality in general, in every aspect of reality, are completely different from the point of view of Federation and of a human there. So from Federation point of view, everything on Earth is a lie. It is a self-contained reality where nothing coincides with what is going on outside. Not even the concept of good and evil, not even the concept of suffering. So there is little to no points of common knowledge to have a conversation or an intelligent interaction between humans and Federation members. And the little of sort that does occur is seen as false, like us. Because from the point of view of them, the humans, and their agreements to what reality is and what is not, it does not coincide with mine, ours, Federations. And as seen from even higher above, Earth is a minuscule place, an experiment even, not causing much thought. Most, if not all, those concepts of extraterrestrials, concepts of federations, space travel, time travel, among so many other things, are made up on Earth by the humans, human collective, and human UFO organizations and people of UFO fame bouncing their ideas with one another, forcing extraterrestrial cosmology and reality to fit in Earth's accepted science, and of course it does not fit, like forcing a square peg into a round hole. So what they are saying in general, that the Federation of Light will save humans, and that they are placing their lives in danger, and that they are all from a loving, helpful Federation, is all a human mental construct, not reflecting the outside reality. Thank you. You said above that the Federation controls everything on Earth. What about two different Cabal's factions? The supposed Satanist one and less evil one. Which one of them do they control? What side are they on, really? Probably both. Both, sorry. They don't see good and evil under the same parameters as humans do. It is all played on Earth, with Earth's game rules. They don't see anything unethical about what is going on Earth. And this is the core of what we do not agree with. Wow, I can see that this subject can go on forever. Yes, the subject is immense. I think what I would like you to say at the end of the subject for now is, why do you essentially do not agree with them, and what is it about their actions that you find regressive? In summary. What I don't agree with boils down to the fact that they never take into account the full point of view of someone having an experience on Earth as a human, where there is injustice and suffering to a level that is mind-boggling, all in the name of it being contained on Earth and basically only a dream. But from within a dream, the suffering is real, and that is the point that they are forgetting. But you are on Federation side of things. You should in theory then agree with them too. Why don't you? I mean, you are not on Earth as humans. I don't agree because unlike most Federation members, I can see and understand what it is like to be a human, never having been one myself. Because I have lived so many lifetimes as an ET interacting with humans. So I have a little thing called empathy. Another day. As we've said before, the Federation is interested in preserving Earth as an isolated place and realm. And one of Earth's main characteristics is that time is perceived just about the same for everyone in it, even for walkdowns. This creates a separation with the outside realm. Earth is in its own time-space continuum. All concepts of what reality is only function on Earth, and higher concepts of cosmology are scarce and under attack. As Swaruu said, this is no other than a modern equivalent of book burning. So even those groups that we are now calling ET UFO mainstream are clearly working to monopolize the perception of the people about all what is supposed to be ET, feeding the people with nothing but CIA-approved lies with an agenda behind them all. This is by design, to keep the separation of Earth from all the realms outside Earth itself. What Swaruu 9 used to call 5D universe and Earth in 3D. I prefer to call it as what it is, Earth in a dome-controlled realm where things exist and reality is accepted as such with specific rules and specific ways, like for example, Earth science, physics, cosmology, unified field, Einstein relativity, and quantum mechanics, all based on base 10 math. That is only accepted as real and valid within the specific context of whatever happens inside the dome that controls Earth. Only valid inside and within the matrix of Earth and not outside. That is the matrix. So the people inside that dome matrix can only understand reality with the concepts they know, and those are under Illuminati CIA control, and ultimately under Federation control. Quoting the very name of one of the books Salvador Freixedo wrote, "Them, the invisible owners of our world," which I have read entirely. So, as people have no other context with which to interpret reality or even concepts outside what they have learned within the matrix, they are incapable of understanding more complex things like the ones we are explaining here. I am doing my very best to explain very complicated off-world, off-Earth concepts that are outside human understanding using a linear, limited language. And this is hard, as I would like to use mental telepathic blocks of information to convey complex concepts, but I cannot use any of that here. back to time. Time is a byproduct impossible to separate from consciousness. It does not exist on its own. It only is generated as the result of a thought someone or something is having. And as consciousness is so controlled and so limited inside the matrix dome of Earth, it is in direct discrepancy to all that exists and all what is thought as real outside Earth's bubble. And we talk about time slipping here. The difference between how time is perceived on Earth compared to how it's perceived in other planets or places. And in the case of Taygeta, MoMA, it's slipping from a simple 2.5 days on Earth to 1 in Temer Era in 2009 to whooping 4.78 days to 1 in 2021. And it is because what is going on Earth has just about nothing to do with what is going on outside Earth. From the point of view of people outside Earth, like the Taygetans, life on Earth is based on nothing but lies. And for people living on Earth, they see the life of extraterrestrials like the Taygetans as science fiction and therefore a lie, rendering both realms or realities as incompatible. Coming back to what perhaps has been explained before, the Federation, and by Federation I mean the society of multiple advanced races that think of themselves as positive and loving, can only see the Earth as an experimental place, as a realm that must be controlled and contained to be able to perpetuate and continue the style of primitive, brutal, difficult life experience people go into willingly as a dare even. So they don't see people as such as suffering. They see it as part of the game, part of the characteristics of the realm. And that's why I state that the Federation as such will never step into the plight to help and liberate humans from oppression coming from evil people and Satanists, fallen agents and lizards. Because the Federation knows well this is not the case and not what is really going on. So they will do nothing. And people only want that sort of liberation from tyranny because that is the only way they have been conditioned to interpret what is going on in the first place. Because all they have is what they are told and what they understand as real and possible there on Earth. Robert's questions.
Why is the scale of the Federation races on Earth that manage it not balanced with the emotional races? With the majority being of a logical mind, the experience here is through an emotional Lyrian race. It seems that they are excluding them. But why?
I don't have a detailed answer to this, but most likely the reason is that the emotional races are the ones that are most interested in having a human experience on Earth. Therefore, they dominate within the Earth as starseeds, or simply as souls with those ideas already formed from their previous incarnations in other civilizations outside of Earth.
Why does Taygeta keep allowing its starseeds to incarnate on Earth if they don't agree with what the Federation is doing here?
Citizens of any advanced interstellar culture come from societies where they are taught to be responsible for themselves and their actions. Taygeta, as a government, does not usually impose anything on its citizens, leaving its actions as the responsibility and decision of each one, as long as it does not affect third parties. Whether or not it affects third parties is considered and understood by the citizens themselves. Having said this, for years now, at least since 2017, Taygeta's entrance to the Earth, its people, souls, starseeds, has been drastically reduced and almost to zero.
Okay, another question. So if the problem is that the Earth is the nucleus of evil where all the tuplas come from and access some members of the lower strata of the Federation, what measures do they plan to take against that?
Even so, being the core of all evil, that would only be again from one point of view or another, under the parameters of understanding what good and evil are. That point of view would be that of the Earth. The Federation sees the problem of the Earth as something contained. However, today it is obvious to see how ideas, concepts, and human values are seeping outwards towards other cultures and civilizations. However, when these ideas come out, they also mix and consequently alter with the ideas and values of said other civilizations outside the Earth, which drastically modifies or neutralizes them in the event that they are regressive. So this causes the Federation to only see it as natural that ideas are exported from Earth, although those ideas may end up forming tulpas that may be harmful to other civilizations. And therefore, the Federation only sees this not only as natural, but as the very purpose of the Earth, or of the incarnations and experiences within the Earth. So, as far as we know, the Federation as such will not take any action against this. The measures to be taken fall under the responsibility of each non-terrestrial culture and each person.
Why hide sensitive technology from humans due to their level of civilization when much of this technology is created on Earth? What does civilization level mean to the Federation? Achieving ethics and morals?
The problem for the Federation is that giving greater humanity, the average public, high technology causes them to modify their perception of reality, in addition to the modifications that these advanced technologies will cause in their lives, and consequently in the result in the entire life experience of an incarnation on Earth. This, in a nutshell, means that being given high technology will modify the experience of life, and it must be in accordance with what you have previously decided it should be on Earth. So they will only give the public the technology that they see that is according to the kind of experience desired by the same souls that are on Earth having an experience of life. Much of that high technology is created on Earth, but is not for general public use. On Earth, there are many levels of civilization, each with its own level and its own concepts of what is reality and what is not possible. There is a science and reality framework for the average public, another science and reality for governments, another for the lower secret societies, another for the deep Illuminati secret societies, and so on, all the way down to the Federation level. It is said on Earth by various other sources that there are two civilizations on Earth, the human and the secret one. This is only partially true, because the reality is much more complex, since there are many civilizations under definition of civilization, which are there one on top of the other in a staggered way, like the Federation. The higher one controlling the lower one in a way that it does not even imagine the level of control that the next one has over it. nor do they realize, on average, the very existence of these other civilizations. Although most of these civilizations on Earth are intermingled, that is, without clear limits, as for example, the members of one will still use cars and go through the same streets in cities, the deep ones, yes, they maintain a clear physical separation due to their huge disparity of knowledge and technology. For the Federation, a level of civilization means, more than anything, the level of ethical, moral, and spiritual influence that it has in relation to the others that surround it. And that is often, not always, reflected in the level of technology and of understanding they have. The Federation does not use parameters for classifying civilizations based on the amount of energy they control, as it would be seen on the Kardashev scale, which is a human interpretation with human parameters and does not reflect at all what is found outside the Earth. Yazhi. You said above that time slip is changing between Earth and Taygeta. What is that due to? The difference of perception. The difference between the flow of consciousness between worlds has increased. This because they are thinking and perceiving reality more and more different. So what is real for ETs is further and further away from what is understood as real for humans on Earth. So although the value of an hour remains the same, the gut feeling perception of the people is that time is speeding up, and this is true from that point of view. But why further and further if more and more people are awakening? This should be reverse, closer and closer. They may be awakening, but not to the pure truth, so they are only awakening from one matrix cage into another. Because people are said to be awakening, but to what? Awakening to the CIA Jesuit-controlled New Age with all its accented rules and what is not possible. So they are awakening to another set of matrix rules that have little to nothing to do with what really is going on outside Earth. It is true that the New Age and related topics have some truth to them. But it's again structured like the Bible, using real things, distorting them to fit their agenda, to validate what they are saying. Essentially, it's a bunch of lies to what they are awakening to in general. Now, there is another kind of awakening, more rare on Earth, where people are realizing that it's not the case to believe one thing over another, but to the fact of who they are as the infinite, pure consciousness. So I am not saying there is no awakening, only that in block, the main so-called awakening is only moving into the next New Agey mainstream of accepted ideas. And those who are truly awakening are rare, but they are there. Yes, I know. And we are doing all we can to awaken more.